here. You guys should see. So guys, we're gonna start soon the live stream. Have all the guys here ready to go. Any questions you guys put in the chat. The guys are gonna be monitoring the chat, so even if they're not speaking, they can try to talk trash back to you guys. Trash talk is allowed, but no offensive language, please. It's gonna be fun. Thanks to the guys that just came. Baltimore Boy, Johnny Williams, Craven, Some Raven, Harry Holland, Javon B. For my guys in the tube here on the call, one of you I think has the volume up from the stream, so I hear feedback. Yes, one of you guys, but I don't hear anymore. Yeah, I think it sounds good. Uh-oh. It's okay, man. Our boy Raven, his son comes to his videos all the time. So, it happens. Part of being a dad. Okay. Guys, let's put that intro on. You're watching it, huh? You're liking it. That took me a while too to make. Boy. And we are here. So, hopefully, audio sounds good. If you cannot see the guys, or their audio doesn't sound good, you guys have to let me know. I'm trying to work a bunch of things here at the same time. So, uh-oh. Quincy looks frozen. Oh, there you go. You're back. Oh, there's an echo. There's a fucking echo. Oh, I know why. It should be echo on my side. It should be fixed. So what I'm gonna do is really quick. I'm gonna have my guys here introduce themselves, and wait. Yeah, you guys introduce yourselves. That way you guys can hear them. So we're gonna start with my boy Ace Boogie since he's top left. Go ahead, man. Introduce yourself. Tell them who you are, where they can find you.
Hey, what's going on, fellas? It's your boy Ace Boogie. I represent New Stripe City. It's a YouTube channel for diehard Bengals fans. You can find me on YouTube at New Stripe City, and you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at New Stripe City.
Okay, and then next will be Tony from Lock On.
Yeah, it's Tony Serino from Locked On Steelers. You can find me and my co-host Christopher Carter on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you find podcasts. Search Locked On Steelers, and we do a daily podcast.
Okay, cool. Last but not least, my boy Quincy from the Browns.
How you guys doing? The world's favorite Browns YouTuber. That's a proven fact. Don't check it. But check me out. Worst Take. I talk about NFL. I talk about Browns. I talk about it all. So hit that button, man. Whatever button that is.
So guys, their information is in the description below. Something that I talked before is let me mute this bad boy because I don't want it to. I try to have at least follow one channel from AFC North teams. The reason why there's nobody better than Quincy to know their Brown stuff. There's no better than Ace Boogie for his Bengals, and Tom for his Steelers, right? And they know Ravens, but I know a little bit more than them from the Ravens side. But that's why I like to follow the others because it's important for me to see what isn't it known for the Bengals, for the Steelers, and for the Browns. So they all know that I call the Bungles the Squealers. I think Tom doesn't know this. The Bungles, the Squealers, and the Clowns. And it's all good because I know they have names for my Ravens. And that's fair. That's fine. So, but before we get started here with AFC North talk, I want to know, what is your take on Andrew Luck? What is your guys' thought? What do you think and all that?
I think he's the next Patriots quarterback.
So we have a conspiracy here.
I mean, it's not a conspiracy, right? Okay, so he retires early because of the injuries, because of the rehab, and the Colts, I think have misdiagnosed him in the past. This happened with what was it, the shoulder that turned into a neck thing and all of that. So now he's got a calf that turned into a high ankle, right? And he doesn't want to go through this rehab again, and I understand why. I mean, this is not me criticizing Andrew Luck for retiring. I understand why he's doing it. He said he's getting into this cycle where every year it's the same thing of injury, rehab, injury, rehab. I get that. But 2 years from now, when he's feeling healthy and Tom Brady retires, I think we know how this story goes. We're just about to be ready to the Patriots, and then it's all starting up again.
Wow, conspiracy. What is your take, Quincy?
Let me do my best Stephen A. Smith impression right here. I understand what you're saying, but let me tell you why you're wrong.
I hope I'm wrong.
Andrew Luck, in his retirement, a lot is going to be made about the physical toll that he had to take. But I think what gets lost in the shuffle is the mental toll it takes to come back from an injury and what that has done to him. This is a guy who has come back from 6 major injuries in the last 4 years, peeing blood, one of them. And I think he just decided that this team didn't know what this calf injury was. It turned into a high ankle. He is thinking worst case scenario, this is an Achilles strain this could be an Achilles issue. And he would like to avoid rehabbing from an Achilles injury because he's just burnt out by all the injuries. This is what happens when you let a player get injured too much. This is the same thing that happened to Derrick Rose in the Chicago Bulls, where he lost his love for the game because he got injured so much in such a short period of time. And this is the same story just happening in the NFL realm with Andrew Luck, because he just decided he couldn't take any more rehab. He couldn't take going back to zero again, and he just would rather not risk it.
Okay, Ace?
I tend to agree with both of those takes there. I think part of it was the injury. I also believe that some of it could also be the fact that he felt like he was in a situation where he's trapped. I mean, Andrew Luck is the franchise of the actual Colts, so there's no way, even if he wanted to request a trade or go to somewhere else, similar to Trent Williams, who wants to get traded simply because he doesn't trust the staff, that's not going to be an option that's available for him. So I think that it definitely has to be the injury toll, the fact that he cannot trust that coach staff. You also see the fact that they gave him $20 million. They basically guaranteed that he didn't have to give it back. I think that signifies that there could be something where they don't want it to get out that they may have misdiagnosed the injury or something like that, or there could be some kind of fallout from that. I think the way that it was done was just very shocking. For it to happen after the dress rehearsal for the Colts right before the season was just kind of weird to me, honestly. Like, I had to do a double take when I saw it come across my screen. But I do think that it could be a play for him to move away from Indianapolis. Like, he could decide in 3 years or 2 years from now that he wants to come back after he's fully rehabbed from this recent injury, but he may decide that he doesn't want to play for the Colts. So I think that this could also be a play in that situation where he's young enough to actually pull it off and come back and try to request a trade somewhere after they've finally replaced him if they tank for Tua this year. So it could be a conspiracy theory as well. It also makes me wonder, you talked about the Patriots. Did Josh McDaniels know this? Is this why Josh McDaniels didn't take the Indianapolis coach job? The conspiracy theories are going to start to kind of go off there, but I think that I agree with both gentlemen on the take.
Well, I think Josh McDaniels definitely knew that Andrew Luck had an injury history, right? So, I think, going there and being the coach for Andrew Luck meant that, this guy has not been able to stay healthy for his entire career.
Right.
And I think we can all agree, right? I mean, Andrew Luck, if he gets healthy again, there's a chance he's coming back and playing. I don't think that this is guaranteed 100% the last time we're ever going to see Andrew Luck in an NFL uniform.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
I,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah, I don't know if he is planning on coming back because like Andrew Luck is such a weird dude. Like first off, and you just run into these guys in sports like a Calvin Johnson or a Barry Sanders, guys who are just completely different than what the cultural norm is for an NFL football player. And when those guys decide that they're done, they're usually done. Calvin Johnson has not even tried to come back. I know we thought that was going to happen.
Yeah.
Obviously, Barry Sanders has not come back. And this is a guy who, at the end of the day, has like a aerospace engineering degree from Stanford.
Right.
He'll be able to make money.
Right. I just think the quarterback position is. I mean, I agree with you on Calvin Johnson. It was strange he walked away and never came back. I thought he was coming back. But at quarterback, when we see these guys, playing until they're, Ben Roethlisberger's 37. Tom Brady's going to be, like 43 this year? You can play really long now at quarterback, so he's only 29. If he says 2-3 years from now, hey, you know what? I still got some left in me, he may have another 4 or 5 years in him with how quarterbacks can how their careers can be so long these days.
But I think if there's a chance of him coming, will be after next year, like after this year. Next year, a year off. If his body feels good, I think at that point, you're probably gonna get competitive juices on, and you're like, okay, because the Colts were actually pretty good. Like they were like their whole roster was looking good. So for me, him leaving the retiring, it must hurt. Meaning like he must be real injured because the team was poised to have a good year. So in my opinion, if he doesn't come next year, he's not gonna come. Yeah, quarterbacks do last. Oh, we lost Ace. Quarterbacks do last, but the big thing with that is, even though that they last, he had a lacerated kidney. His injuries have been kind of nasty, right? A lot of people get torn ACLs, and they're not fun. I got one, and they're not fun. But when you get a lacerated kidney, and you start peeing blood, you start thinking about your future. The dude already made his money, and he's a smart dude too. So anyway, hopefully we can regain Ace, and he did mention that he might be bouncing in and out, guys. So bear with us here. Okay, so for now, without Ace, my next question, and this is when we're gonna start talking about AFC North. Who do you guys think? Instead of gonna be who's gonna win the North, I'm gonna go bottom part. Who do you guys think is gonna be the floor of the division? Thinking that this, in my opinion, is a very good division. In my opinion, one of the best divisions in the league. Who do you guys think is gonna be the bottom of the league?
We know why Ace left the room.
Yeah, I was just gonna say it's a good thing Ace is in here. This is a good segment for him to maybe step out.
He made it.
I am still here.
No,
I knew that this was coming.
He made it. Okay, who wants to take it first?
I want to hear from Ace. I want to know what team he's going to throw under the bus.
Go, bro.
Okay. So for me, I've actually been doing a series on evaluating all of the teams in the division. For me, I have the Browns finishing first. I have no. I know what you're saying. You want me to say who's going to be the last? Okay, sorry about that. So this is going to seem personal, but I have to go with the Steelers.
Oh my goodness gracious!
The reason why I'm
okay,
say it is,
all right.
Losing AB and Bell for years, you guys have killed us with those two guys. I mean, like, whenever we had the game plan against you guys, the killer bees were just a huge problem for us. Like, Le'Veon Bell ripped off over 200 yards numerous times. AB was always a problem. It always started with those two guys. Ben is obviously Ben. Juju's going to be what he can be, but I have to see Juju prove himself without AB. And I have to see James Conner, even though he had a good season last year, I don't see the dynamic that you guys had with Le'Veon Bell, where you can split this guy out as a wide receiver, and he's still a threat. So for me, I think it's that. Outside of I mean, obviously the Steelers have a great history, so this would be something out of the norm. But compared to everyone else, I just have to see how they survive that. Is where I'm going with it. And then you guys also lost the offensive lineman coach. I think your offensive line was the best in the division. Losing that coach though, losing Mike Munchak, I don't know how that's going to affect the offensive line.
Okay, so since Ace called Squealers to be
Unbelievable.
floor of the league,
Unbelievable.
I'm gonna hit Tom for him to talk.
Tony.
Go ahead.
This is
Tony,
juicy.
Tony.
This is juicy.
What do you think the Steelers are? Okay, so they're going to finish in the bottom of the division, right? But they'll be like 10-6 at the bottom of the division. What are you thinking?
I think about 7-9, 8-8.
Unbelievable. I mean, the amount of disrespect already. We're not even, what are we, 15 minutes into this thing? It's unbelievable. Listen, this was a 9-6-1 team a year ago. We could talk problems on this team for days, right? And they were still 9-6-1. So, look, I get the Le'Veon Bell thing, but Le'Veon Bell was off of this team a year ago, and Connor came in. Connor played very well. Yes, he got hurt. Yes, there are injury concerns for him. But when you consider the fact that this team had all the turmoil of Le'Veon not showing up day one and everything, the team kind of taking that the wrong way, and maybe that definitely affected this team in weeks, let's say 1 through 4. Right, you had Chris Boswell being going from the best kicker in football to the worst kicker in football. You had a defense that gave up. I think they had the lead in the fourth quarter of every game they lost, other than the Ravens game. And then Ben Roethlisberger led the league in interceptions. I mean, all of these things were true, and they still won 9 games. So I would be very surprised if this team went 7-9. I have the Bengals finishing on the bottom of the division. I think. This is a team that is in a rebuilding process, and they finally got rid of Marvin Lewis, which I think was a long time coming. They need to next get rid of Andy Dalton. I think Andy Dalton is who he is. He's not getting any better. This team is not leading you to a Super Bowl. He's not even going to win a playoff game. So that team's got to figure out what is next for it, and next is a new quarterback.
Okay. Fair. So I'm gonna take the worst take now. Tell me, Quincy. And by the way, before you keep going, guys, you're gonna see resizings on the video. It's because we're putting so much throughput right now that's how, instead of buffering, that's how the whole program is adjusting. You're gonna see going up and down. I apologize, but that way at least there's no buffering. Go ahead, Quincy.
All right, man. So anybody who's watched my channel knows that I don't think the Cincinnati Bengals should try to win games this year, and I don't think they are going to win games this year. But I'm going to take a little bit of a different angle because I do realize the Cincinnati Bengals do have some pieces there. They're not a completely terrible team. They're not like Washington or Arizona. Those teams are complete dumpster fires. But they have Andy Dalton, who's a better than average quarterback. He's not great, but he's not going to take you anywhere. They have Tyler Boyd and A.J. Green, but now A.J. Green's getting to an age now to where he doesn't fit within the rebuilding time frame with the Bengals. They have Geno Atkins. They have countless numbers of solid guys. And if I were the Bengals, I would actually take a book from, more of a basketball play and consider trading guys like A.J. Green, trading guys like Andy Dalton, and getting assets back for those guys because they just don't fit in your time frame. I don't think that there's really a future with those two anymore. I think their window has came and went, and they unfortunately never won with either of those guys. So if I were the Bengals, I would actually trade everybody that's useful on that team, keep guys like Tyler Boyd, keep some of the young gems that you have. You got Joe Mixon, and get those assets and try to rebuild because the Steelers are getting older. They don't have a clear replacement for Big Ben. We don't know how this experiment is going to run in Baltimore. We don't know if it's going to work in Cleveland with all of the, egos or whatever the national media likes to say. So if I would be the Bengals, I would take a bet towards the future because this division is going to be open. There is no clear, there's nobody with a clear stranglehold over the division yet. So if you're the Bengals, suck this year, suck the next year, get rid of all your assets, and try to build something from that rather than being 6-10 and having a 12th pick in a draft and drafting fat guys from Texas A&M who won't produce on your line.
Okay, so let me chime in here for a moment. I think the Bengals are gonna be last, and my boy, I talked with Ace a couple months ago. We did a video together. And the reason that I say this to Ace, I think the Bengals have pieces, like Quincy was making. But I also told my boy Ace here that the Bengals have the worst luck. And after the draft, boom, Jonah Williams out for the year. And it's just one thing after another. Now, they got lucky in something here. This is something that I have been thinking. If I was them, I'll be hollering at, because I think they can compete. In my book, they're a 6-10 team. That's what I have the Bengals, and especially it's because of their offensive line. That's it's hard to compete with. I think their offense, they need to bolster that offensive line going to the future. But anyway, I'll be calling the Colts like, dude, I do have an average quarterback that is not that expensive. He might be good enough for you guys to make a deep run to the playoffs. Jacoby Brissett, when he played with them, it was 4 or 5 wins in. Dalton has experience. If I was the Colts, I will consider trading for Dalton, and if I was the Bengals, I would consider trading to the Colts, trading Andy Dalton. I think the Bengals are just talented in certain areas, but O-line is just taking them back. They do have a decent defense, really good running back. AJ Green is getting older, but Boyd is pretty good as a receiver, and John Ross, will see what he does. I think at this point he has been more of a disappointment. But there are some pieces there for the Bengals. They need that quarterback in the future, but also they need to fix that O-line. Any answer from Mr. A, since everybody else picked your team?
I mean, I've been hearing it all off season, so I'm pretty thick-skinned. But a lot of people forget the Bengals were 4-1 through Week 5 last year until Tyler Eifert went down, has not remained healthy. We talked about Andrew Luck earlier. He was another guy that I would have thought, like, if anyone were to retire from injuries, it would be him. But this team was completely different with those guys in. The issue, in my opinion, has been injuries the past couple of years to major guys like Andy Dalton. Andy Dalton got hurt last year. He's been hurt the last couple of years. AJ Green's always in and out of the lineup. Tyler Eifert hasn't really played a full season since 2015. So that's been a big injury bug for us. But also Marvin Lewis. Like, I think a lot of people are underselling, like, to the national perspective, a lot of people feel like Marvin Lewis took this team that used to win two or three games perennially and made them competitive, right? But he could never win a playoff game. And honestly, a lot of our fans tend to think that within the past, 3 to 4 years, maybe even 5 years, Marvin Lewis has actually been one of the people that have held us back, especially with the talent on this roster, with some of his decision making. I mean, I don't want to go off onto a tangent, but pretty much a lot of people feel like Marvin Lewis kind of held this team back, and they feel like if we give the reins to a new coach that is more innovative and more fresh thinking and more open-minded, that this team can actually improve. And even through the Marvin Lewis blockage, this still was a team that won 6 to 7 games, and not to take a low blow, but obviously even in our down years, we were still able to keep the Ravens out of the playoffs with a last-minute touchdown.
Yeah, we don't want to talk about
Andy
that.
Dalton and Tyler Boyd.
I like that game.
Where's the hangout?
That might be my favorite Bengals win of all time.
Where's the hangout button here? Go ahead, man. Go ahead.
But yeah, I mean, I totally understand why there's a skepticism. I mean, 3 years of not making the playoffs. Andy Dalton, I agree with you guys. He's a guy that's only as good as the weapons around him. The weapons around him haven't been there. He's not a guy that you can lean on to hope that things are going to be there. You also mentioned the offensive line. That's been a huge issue for us. I tend to have some faith that it's improved a little bit. And when I say a little bit, maybe it'll be 10 less sacks than it was last year. But I think you guys have valid points, so I'm not gonna argue last place. But I just think that you guys are gonna be in for a shock this year.
Okay.
I think also, though, one of the things that happens with just being in this division, it's so easy to be buried, even when you're not that awful, because, I know the meme is that the Browns have been awful for 20 years, but they've had teams that had
that's also
solid
the reality,
players.
right?
Yeah, they've had teams though with solid players on it that they just weren't able to build all the way through because they didn't have a quarterback or But if you look at the rosters that the Browns have churned out, they've had solid players on them. It's just been organizationally they've been dysfunctional. And one of the things I know as a Browns fan is when you're at the bottom of this division, it's so hard to build up because you could be on a regular division, maybe an 8-8, 6-10 team, and you could build off of that momentum. But here in this division, if you're that bad, you're not going to get cut any slack. You're going to lose a bunch of games, and you're going to be 3-13. You're not going to be able to keep free agents. Nobody's going to want to sign there, and you're going to be able to attract the worst candidates, and you'll end up with Hugh Jackson. Man, no offense, I know he's a Bengals guy, but but you end up with Hugh Jackson running the show, and then he goes 3-32 or something like that. I don't even want to remember the right number.
My favorite Browns era ever. I mean, Hugh Jackson might be my favorite Browns coach.
Is Hugh Jackson still in the Bengals? He left, right?
No.
Yeah, no, he left with Marvin Lewis.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, so now we're gonna just shift it to the other side, completely other side of the spectrum. Who do you guys think is gonna be first? And with this, I'm gonna start with the Steeler. He's been quiet there. So, who do you think is gonna be first?
The Steelers are going to be first in this division. I mean, they have the most talent in the division.
Oh,
they have the best coach, the best quarterback.
Most confident fans.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I mean, look, this is a team that 2 years ago was 13-3 and probably shouldn't have been. They probably shouldn't have been 13-3 2 years ago. They probably should have been more like an 11-5 or 10-16.
But before you keep going,
year,
before you keep going, you know how much difference a year makes, and you're gonna talk about 2 years ago.
You didn't let me finish my point.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, 2 years ago they were a 13-3 team that shouldn't have been 13-3. They were probably, they should have lost a game or two more. Right? Last year, when you look at how many games that they lost in fluky ways at the end of games, that was a 9-6-1 team that should have been 11-5, 12-4. Right? So back-to-back years with Antonio Brown, Le'Veon Bell, that kind of thing. Okay, so they lose those guys. Another question is this team better without them? And my answer is yes. This team is absolutely better without Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell. And I'll tell you why.
Let's hear them out.
Okay, so you've got Juju Smith-Schuster as your number one receiver. You're gonna pair him with James Washington and Dante Moncrief. These are not household names, but with Antonio Brown. Ben Roethlisberger threw 16 interceptions. Without him, he's not forcing the ball to AB anymore. He can spread the ball around. You got James Conner, and now you've got a young defense with guys like Devin Bush and Cam Hayward and T.J. Watt emerging. This is a more balanced team overall. And I'm not saying this team's going to go 16-0, but I mean, we're talking about another 11-5 type year. That's all it's going to take to win this division.
Dude, what is in the water in Pittsburgh? I want to know, because it must be the good stuff. I didn't know it was legal over there. I thought we were talking about the west side having it legal, not necessarily in the east side. Okay. Either of you two, Quincy or Ace, want to take this one?
Go ahead, Ace.
Do you mean a rebuttal, or do you mean just who I think is going to finish?
You can rebuttal, and
I'll let Quincy get the rebuttal then.
All right. So I could get certain arguments why you would say that the Steelers are better than 9-6-1 this year because they don't have Le'Veon and Antonio Brown. But if you're going to sit there and tell me that they're a better team overall, that they are going to be a better. They're gonna be a more formidable team than they were with Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell. I'm sorry, I can't swallow that pill. I get why you would say it. Antonio Brown.
This was a 9-6-1 team with those guys.
Yes.
Well, it was without Le'Veon, with Antonio Brown. They were 9-6-1.
So you're saying that AB equals Connor, or James Washington? Sorry.
Well, here's my issue.
I'm saying that what did Antonio? Hold on. How many wins did Antonio Brown give this team a year ago?
Oh my goodness!
He gave you guys 15 touchdowns. He gave you guys 15 touchdowns.
He's the best wide receiver in the NFL.
I understand he's the best wide receiver in the NFL. But how many wins did he give this team?
Well, the thing is, there's more than just the touchdowns. When we have to play the Steelers, and I know not just the Ravens. teams had to bracket him. People had to double team. Everybody had to pay attention to him, which allowed guys like Juju Smith-Schuster to be as not as cover, right? Be able to play one-on-one more. When a team
Juju has no problem playing one-on-one.
No,
Juju has no problem playing
listen
one-on-one.
to me. When
wait,
defensive coordinators were doing their game plan, their defensive game plan, they were doing the game plan on AB. Juju was the second guy, right? All that factors into what the AB did for you guys. You cannot tell me you lose AB and you're gonna put James Washington. And, oh, by the way, we're gonna be better. What? What?
I absolutely can tell you that. This team was 9-6-1 because of all the drama off the field. Antonio Brown, listen, you can have great players. Right? You can have great players. This team had great players for the last 2 years. What did that get this team? That got them a 13-3 year where they got roasted by Blake Bortles in the playoffs. Okay,
I forgot that happened.
Yeah, that happened, and I was at that game. Okay? That's what happened. And then last year they had this great offense, Big Ben and Antonio Brown. They got them 9-6-1. You got them 9-6-1. You can have great players, but you have to have chemistry. You have to have a locker room that believes in one another. They did not have that a year ago. They did not have that. They now have that. That is that. And when we talk about the Browns in a second, that is going to be a big part of what makes Cleveland a good team if they are going to be a good team.
All right. So the main issue, one of the things is I think you have 2 less wins. And you have 1 less win and you don't have a tie and you have a loss against the Browns in that first week opener if you don't have Antonio Brown last year. So I do think he made a huge difference. Now, I'm not one of these people who don't think that Juju Smith is a number one. He's going to be able to handle double teams. He's going to be fine in that aspect. He's going to become a star this year. The issue is, do you really think that James Washington is going to be that dude on the other side of the field? He has not even been close to being that dude. And I know it's Pittsburgh. You guys produce wide receivers. You guys have had 2 in the bucket for like 20 years. But are you seriously going to sit there and tell me that you as a Steeler fan, knowing the great wide receivers you've seen, have watched James Washington and thought to yourself, yeah, that guy's up there?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I was all over this guy a year ago. I went to training camp a year ago and thought, they did it. James Washington is the next great receiver. And I'll tell you what, the regular season was an absolute shock to me because he looked like a completely different guy. He was lost out there. This is a guy in training camp who was making combat catch after combat catch over guys like Joe Hayden. And Joe Hayden was saying after practice, I mean, this kid's special. And it disappeared in the regular season. Now, I don't understand why. I think some of it was confidence. I think another part of it was, look, Antonio Brown and Juju were getting all the targets in that offense. So he just didn't get the opportunities of some of the other guys. But no, I expect big things out of James Washington this year. And even if they don't get that, I mean, you still have Dante Moncrief, you still have Switzer, Vance McDonald, James Conner. I mean, this offense is going to be just fine.
So you telling me that the Steelers haven't put your boy Washington as the first team in the preseason and have put Moncrief because they think Washington is equivalent to AB? That's what you're saying.
No. I don't think this offense requires Antonio Brown. Is what I'm trying to say.
Oh my goodness, no!
Okay,
you cannot say that.
Go ahead.
I have to say something now.
Go ahead.
I have to say something now. Antonio Brown was your offense. He was the most targeted player in the NFL for several years. For me to sit here and hear you act like I'm a Bengals fan, I don't like this.
Blasphemous.
I give you guys your kudos. At one point, you had the best running back in the NFL and the best wide receiver in the NFL on one team. And you're going to tell me losing them is going to have zero impact on you guys?
Okay, hold on. Hold on. What impact?
AJ Green and Joe Mixon, I would not sit up here and tell you guys that we're going to be better without those guys.
So then, what the argument would be then that the Steelers were 9-6-1 a year ago because they did not have Le'Veon Bell.
But you still had Antonio Brown, who was a focal point of your offense.
Okay, so let's take it the opposite. Let's say that they didn't have Antonio Brown a year ago, but they did have Le'Veon Bell. What's their record then?
The other thing that I'll bring up is the games that Antonio Brown didn't play in. How did Juju Smith-Schuster do in them? He didn't do that great.
It was only one game. It was week 17. AB left the team. I mean, we could talk about that game, but there was a lot of things happening outside of the team than just the stats.
I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. AB obviously was a cancer and things of that nature, but you have to give the guy his credit, man. I mean, the receiving yards that this guy put up is just – you're not going to find a guy that can come in and put up 1,600 or 1,700 wide receiver or receiving yards, just like AB did with 15 touchdowns.
And don't get me wrong, I'm not going to sit here and say that Antonio Brown was not a good player. He didn't put up good stats, right? But what I am arguing is that the off-the-field stuff for Antonio Brown outweighed his production on the field. That has been my argument.
And I would say though, this whole conversation has completely distracted us from what the actual reason that the Steelers went 9-6-1 last year is. It had nothing to do with the offense. The offense was fine. The defense was bad.
Trash.
Okay, the secondary was bad, and maybe that's why James Washington looked so good in camp. Because let me tell you, as a Browns fan who had Joe Hayden for years, short, quick wide receivers always toast Joe Hayden. I watched Antonio Brown do a front flip in front of him before. Okay, so.
Listen, you're not going to get me to defend last year's Steeler defense. I was not a fan.
So all of this conversation, and essentially, what do you have here at the end of the day? You have a Steelers defense that is kind of relying on a rookie in Devin Bush to make that big jump that they needed to make from last year, and you have an offense on the other side, which scoring points was not the problem last year. Antonio Brown was able to put points on the board along with Big Ben, and Big Ben was able to put a lot of points on the board in his own right. So that wasn't the issue. How are they going to fix their issue if they just lost their best players and they're relying on a rookie? I don't know how I could sit here and be really confident in the Steelers to win the division in that way, because they have lost so much of what their identity has been over the last 5 years.
Right, but I go back to my point of so we talk about losing Le'Veon Bell. How much did that affect? Because you guys just said the offense was absolutely fine last year and they lost Le'Veon Bell. But all I'm saying is, hey, you know what? If you lose Antonio Brown, who was an absolute cancer on this team, we can all agree that Antonio Brown, not a great teammate. And we're seeing that in Oakland right now as he decides, I'm just not showing up for practice because I don't like my helmet. So I'm not showing up for practice, right? That's what the Steelers have been dealing with for the last, I would say 3 years in Pittsburgh. He's turned into an absolute diva. That stuff affects your ability to win games on the field. The production, I cannot argue. He's probably the greatest Steeler receiver of all time. But the wins, this team's ability to put together wins, I don't think he helped his cause in 2018.
I disagree with the not helping the Steelers on W's. Again, I love Juju. Damn, the Ravens should have drafted him a couple years ago in the second round. And I think he's gonna be good. But now he's gonna be the focal point when when Wick Martindale sits down and starts scouting the Steelers. He's gonna be like, we need to pay attention to Juju. Beforehand, it used to be, okay, AB, you're gonna have Marlon Humphreys 1-on-1, and by the way, there's gonna be safety over the top 10 bracket. We don't have that now. Juju's not as quick as Antonio Brown, and even though I think Juju he's good on the route tree, I don't think there's anybody as good as Antonio Brown on routes. All that factors in. So that's why the Ravens and most teams had to double team this guy. Now, when you play the Steelers, you will pay more attention to Juju, but you can also have a safety be more free against the Steelers because you don't have that guy that is just a complete X factor. Yes, the guy's an ass. He is. Okay, he was a cancer. But on the field, when they started playing, the dude was dynamic, and even if he was having an off game, everybody was paying attention to AB. Everybody. Right. But anyway. Right. So
this argument boils down to your guys' idea that the Steelers cannot develop wide receivers, which...
Hold on.
That's not at all what I'm saying. They'll be playing at wide receiver.
Here's what I'm saying. And this is I'm going to try to put it up in a bowl so I don't have to repeat it. I'm saying that the Steelers' issues weren't scoring points last year. It was keeping points off the board. You have a defense that has the issue with teams scoring points on them. Now you have an offense that's not going to be as prolific because they don't have a top 5 wide receiver. And we can talk about team chemistry until we're blue in the face. But the teams that have Terrell Owens in his prime were they not better off with Terrell Owens, even though he was one of the most cancerous players in the locker room? Did the Eagles not get to a Super Bowl with Terrell Owens, even though he was actively beefing with his quarterback in the media? Like, were the Cowboys not good with T.O.? A great wide receiver can do crap like that because they're just that damn good. Now, I'm not defending what he does, but I'm just saying you can't act like getting rid of him is this net positive on offense. So now you have a defense that can't keep points off the board, and you have an offense that's going to struggle to put as many points on the board because their best player that's replacing the triple Bs that you guys have had is James Conner, and he's a running back, and running offenses aren't going to be able to put up the points on the board that the Steelers are going to need to supplement their bad secondary.
Yeah, okay, so we keep talking about the Steeler defense like it was the worst defense in the league last year. If you go by Football Outsiders DVOA, and I love using them because I think they do a great job of contextualizing defense, and rather than just going by yards per game or points per game, which can be skewed by things like interceptions for touchdowns and giving up by the way yards or by the way points at the end of games. According to Football Outsiders and their DVOA, the Steelers had the 14th best defense in the NFL, almost exactly average. So when we talk about this defense as being a bad defense, they were not a bad defense. They were average.
But I guess to Quincy's point, and I agree with him completely, is your defense, in my opinion, is going to be just a tap better. I love Devin Bush coming out of the draft. I love him coming out of the draft. So they should be a tap better. But also, your offense should be a tap worse. So it goes both ways. I'm not saying your offense
and I agree with that. And what I said was this team was an 11-5 team if you took away all the crap that happened to them as far as the weird ways they lost games. And then if they're just a tad worse here and a tad better there, they're still 11-5.
Let me jump.
I would say 8-8 probably, but go ahead, Quince.
Let me jump into, speaking of the Steelers secondary, exactly why the Browns are going to be the first place team in the AFC North.
Okay, so before you keep going, thank you for bringing us back. I disagree with the statement, but thank you for bringing us back.
Off track?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. All right. So one, to what you're saying with the Steelers defense. Look, man, Joe Hayden's only getting older, and we know what Joe Hayden's issues are. Odell Beckham is gonna tear him up 2 times this season, guaranteed. Baker gonna plant that flag in Heinz Field. We gonna get some revenge for like 20 years of pain that you have given us. All right, we gonna do that. We gonna do that at Heinz Field. But for real though, let me get into why I think the Browns are more than likely gonna win the AFC North. All of the teams in the AFC North, including the Bengals, are solid. I think there's a next level, and that's where the Ravens and the Steelers are, and where the Browns are right now. But I don't think any team in the AFC North has the potential to put it all together like the Cleveland Browns. They have the young talent, they have the superstar talent, they have it on both sides of the ball. Denzel Ward is a Pro Bowler. Myles Garrett is an up-and-coming guy who can win Defensive Player of the Year this year. They have it on both sides of the ball. Nick Chubb, Baker Mayfield, Odell Beckham, who 2 years ago, let's not forget, people were comparing to Jerry Rice. Okay, so when he's healthy and when he's in an offense with a quarterback that can help him, he is absolutely dominant, and I expect to see that form of Odell Beckham. Then you have relief like Jarvis Landry, David Njoku on that offense. There is just so much there that can go right for the Browns that I don't really see any team in the AFC North that is going to be able to necessarily stop that tidal wave.
Okay. Are you done, Quincy? Because I don't want to break your party here.
Yeah, tell me about your running back at quarterback.
Yes. I'll tell you all
Do we know who the Ravens are lining up at quarterback this year?
Yeah, I'll tell you all about it. And get it
Wide receiver Lamar Jackson.
Get it engraved.
I know Lamar's running back. I'm saying who's quarterback for them this year.
So, a couple things.
They got that Navy triple option.
Hey man, that Navy triple option will be hard for you guys to stop. But let me start with this. On the Browns side, because they get the other hype. I love what the Browns did, by the way. And also, let me say that even that I said the Bengals will be the floor, 6-10. It's not a bad record for the worst team in the division. My whole thing with the Bengals trading Andy Dalton, so in theory they can tank and then, like Quincy said, to the future look. But I have the Steelers, Browns, Ravens all bunched together fighting for the division. Should be a hell of a year. Okay, now let me start with this. The Ravens have seen this Browns team before. and the form of the Squealers. They have AB on OBJ, only that OBJ gets injured and AB used to be super reliable on health wise. They had Landry on Juju, which they're very similar receivers in my opinion. Um, Both of them have really good running backs. We can argue Le'Veon Bell was better than Chubb, but I think that Chubb is an up and coming running back, a hell of a running back too. The Steelers had a better O line than the Browns will have coming up this year. And we were always able to contain. I'm not saying beat them all the time. I'm not saying that they weren't torches here or there. But we were able to play them tough. We had the corners. And we go back to we have the corners to play the Browns. We had Marlon Humphrey. And then the other thing is we man up. So me saying about our corners is because our corners basically play man defense most of the game. We have Marlon Humphreys, Carr, and Smith, three really good corners. They're ready for Callaway, OBJ, and Juice. Plus, now we have two. Well, Sonny Jefferson has been with us for a couple of years, but also we have Et Thomas that he's gonna be in the open field. One of my biggest problems with my Ravens last year was we play man, and yeah, teams couldn't score much against us. But if you check our numbers, we were ranked bottom of the league in turnovers. And the reason is because we play man so much that we prevented the yardage, we prevented the movement on the ball, but we couldn't force turnovers because when you're man, it's hard to provide to provoke a pick or whatever. And Eric Gordo was getting late most of the time. The hope is Et can get there. Et has a better eye for the ball. He has a better neck for the football. So my defense can contain, in my opinion, the Browns, or the Clowns as I call them. Second, for the Squealers, I feel like we now have an easier team on the offensive side. We have an easier team that, we don't have to worry about the AB. We don't have to worry about that bracketing system where we basically take two defensive players on one player. We can play more freely. Okay, now on my offense, because I know you guys still care about my defense, because I think you can agree that our defense is legit. Offensive wise, and this is why I'm picking the Ravens. I don't think I started with that. Offensive wise, I think we present a problem. Yes, it's predicated on Lamar Jackson taking a step up like any rookie last year. I do think Baker Mayfield was a hell of a rookie. Don't get me wrong, or a hell of a quarterback. But Lamar Jackson taking a step back or step up. All we ask for Lamar, and this is how this offense is going to be constructed, is he can hit the open receiver. If you have seen him this year, he looks night and day from last year. He can hit the open receiver. His ball's coming stronger. And this team has something that since Flacco was here, from whenever we drafted Flacco, I forgot the year, to this year, we haven't had as much speed as we had. The Steelers have always had speed for the most part. The Browns here and there, they have flashes, even in their times that they were bad. And the Bengals have always had speed. AJ Green was good. He was fast. He hell of a receiver. I'm sad that he hasn't been able to be good in the playoffs because he hasn't had the opportunities. Not because of the lack of talent. But anyway, we now have speed and talent to just produce misdirections all over the field. And how do you guard this team? Are you going to stack the box with 7-8? So now you have a guy like Hollywood Brown that can just drag a drag route for a short pass and can make it a long completion. You have a guy that is physical and Boykins. You have Andrew. You have Hurst. Plus the running backs, right? Ingram, Edwards. We have Hill. And on top of all that, you have Lamar Jackson. That if you want to play back and he sees a crease, do this fast, shifty. Look what he did to Green Bay in that, although it was preseason, which I was like, dude, don't run. That is the special ability he has. So his throwing ability has improved tremendously, and now the speed that he has is going to, between speed and passing, it's going to be hard to game plan for this guy. I think the Ravens had the best chance. I think the Ravens are going to be slightly better than the Browns and slightly better than the Steelers. I have the Ravens a game above the Browns and 2 games above the Steelers. Like I said, I had the division all bunched up.
Oh, wow. All right, man. The Bengals guy has to say something here.
Go
So
ahead.
you said that you're gonna stop Odell Beckham Jr. and Jarvis Landry, but you guys can't even stop AJ Green.
Ooh.
How is that gonna happen?
Okay,
Ooh.
so no, no, no,
Or
I got
Antonio
you.
Brown or Juju.
No, no,
But
no,
that's
no,
neither
no.
here nor there.
So let me back that up. AJ Green was the Ravens' torture. The TV was my nightmare. And I will say also the Bengals have been what you call them average in the past couple of years, Ace, right?
Yep,
Okay.
we've had you guys' number lately. Yes,
Even though
that's
you've been average, you have our guys' number. I would say the same thing for Cleveland. When Cleveland used to be bad, I hate playing Cleveland because the damn Cleveland Browns would play us tough, and there was always a last minute. Yeah, most of the time we beat them, but it was just like at the end. Okay,
Mhm.
so last year we did, or coaching wise, they had Tavon Young on top of AJ Green a couple of times, and I don't know if they forgot that Tavon was 5'10" and AJ Green 7-footer, and yes, he was torching us up. Okay, on the other side for the Squealers part, yes, when Juju usually had decent games against us because we were making sure Antonio Brown wasn't burning us. And like I said, we for the most part contained the Steelers' offense. I'm not saying that we were, preventing them to scoring any points, but the Steelers' offense for the past couple of years with the Killer Bees was arguably top three offense in the league, right? So we were able, not only
okay.
because of familiarity, we were able to contain them. My point is, I feel like in this division, the Ravens had the best defense, and in this division, the Ravens had the potential to have one of the most dynamic offense. Not only in the division, probably in the AFC. I'm not talking about
Oh,
KC.
pump
Yeah,
the brakes
yes.
there.
Well,
Pump
well.
the
I
brakes
mean,
there.
what actually
I,
happened?
Listen,
Let,
You guys
listen,
saw what I
let,
said was great.
I want to hear
listen.
face. I want to hear face.
Okay.
Let me finish this and then I'll let you
Go
go.
ahead. Go
I'm not
ahead.
talking about we are gonna put 5,000 passing yards like Patty Mahomes. I'm talking as the offense in general between running and passing. It is gonna be a very dynamic offense and it's gonna be very hard to plan for them because you're not gonna be able to see this offense on a daily basis like you see. I don't know what you see from the Browns, even though they have more talent than most teams, but it's a typical offense. And what you see from the Steelers and the Patriots, you're not gonna see that with the Ravens. It's gonna be hard to plan them, especially as the year goes by. Yes, if you have a bye week, you have extra time. But you telling me after 5 games in a row, you're gonna be like, oh my god, I have to shift completely my defense to play against this team. And again, the layers of dynamic plays that we can produce, I think we are gonna be a special offense. I'll let you go, Ace.
Number one, I don't think you guys are dynamic. You're a one-dimensional offense. Is this 2004? Because you guys sound like the
1974.
Atlanta Falcons, where all you're going to do is run the ball.
Oh.
Who are your receivers? I really need
I'm,
to know.
I'm gonna tell you who
Oh.
my receivers are. But before that, this 19 whatever year it was said, got a 6-1 into the playoffs.
Sure, I mean, yeah, you
That
surprised some bad teams,
And
and
that
then
was-
was
that
one of the
was
worst
before
offensive
anyone
performances
had
in
film
playoff
on
history
Jackson.
for
Listen,
4.5 quarters until
that
the
was-
Chargers defense decided this game is over.
that was on a handcuff Lamar Jackson, which basically
Handcuffed? You guys were down 23-3.
look.
He
no, no,
fumbled.
no.
How many times did he fumble? I think he just fumbled again.
Dude,
He actually just
dude.
fumbled while we're recording.
Dude, take a step back. I'm just saying throughout his run, he was handcuffed, meaning that the team completely shifted offenses. The team basically went from a Flacco offense to Lamar Jackson offense. So that
Okay.
they had a limited playbook. He had the complete offseason to have a bigger playbook now. They have been working on passing the ball. And like I said, you guys are just banging that we're just going to be, okay, like last year, oh, run. What I'm telling you is we're going to be looking more into the 50-50 split, which is not like the league. Like
Don't
the
see
league
it.
Okay, you can't see it, but I'm telling you. And receiver-wise, we have Hollywood Brown, we have Miles Boykins, we have Snead, and what I think is the best tight end core. I'm not saying one single tight end,
I
but
like
the
that.
core.
Yeah, they got some good
Mark
tight ends. They
Andrews
got-
and Hurst and Boyles blocking and catching tight ends. That's what I'm saying. This team can be very dynamic because we have different elements. And the speed, like I said, I had never seen the speed in Baltimore. Not only on the quarterback side, on the receiver side. So that's what I'm saying. I think the totality of the offense can be very special.
I just think
this is a league where we watched the Rams. Sorry. This is the league where we watch the Rams and Chiefs play like a 52-49 game, right? And now you want to tell me that a 50-50 run split is going to be competitive in the NFL? Look, I understand the Ravens went on a run last year. I'm not taking that away from them. Now, they didn't beat anybody in that run. That they beat the choking Chargers, who 2 weeks later came in. And we talked about it's going to be hard to game plan for Lamar Jackson. I mean, it was the easiest game plan of all time. They said, how about we just load up with all these safeties and dare him to beat us? Yes. And he could not. So yes. I don't think that – I mean, look, I understand Lamar Jackson is a dynamic player, but until he proves that he can actually throw the ball, it's the easiest team in the league to game plan against.
To be
load the box, dare them to throw the football, and if he cannot – it's game, set, match.
I agree. So you're gonna stock the box, and you are gonna be prepared to be amazed because the guy can throw the football. Last year, the game plan for the Chargers was let's keep running. Well, the Chargers countered that and said like you throw, and the problem wasn't that he didn't throw. The problem was the coaching staff, the OC that he's not with us anymore. Said like, yeah, there's 20 people in that box. Yeah, it doesn't matter. You keep running. I'm like, dude, but there's even the bench players you keep running. This year will be different. This year they're gonna push the ball. They're gonna pass the ball. Again, I'm not saying the dude is gonna be Pat Mahomes or not like a passing first quarterback. The offense is gonna be a passing first. I'm saying 50-50 split. And yes, you're gonna say like, oh, Rams and Chiefs. Sorry, Rams and Chiefs. They play 50 whatever to whatever the score was, and it was all passing. Yeah, but you know what? If I go 50-50 and you can stop my run and I can shoot up the clock and my defense is rested for when you put your offense, and I can stop it and turn the ball over to my offense again, and I can put a mix. Yes, it's winning football. Like I said, last year we went 6-1. We did lose to the Chargers, but you know what? We took that L against the Chargers. Steelers, Browns, Bengals, you weren't there.
All right. So here's what I have to say about that. Even if you do put it together and you have this magical 50-50 split offense with Lamar Jackson being just the level of passer he was at college, because he wasn't even that last year, then still there's nothing that clearly puts the Ravens over the Steelers or the Browns, in my opinion. What? Even if that works, I mean, look, Lamar Jackson throwing the ball, like let's be honest, let's be realistic about the situation here. Right. If he throws for 3,000 yards in like 20 touchdowns, that is going to blow everybody in this chat's mind. Like, that is just the reality.
That would be a great year. That would be an incredible year.
We're going to put him in the Pro Bowl and be like, oh, man, he's best thing since Vic. All right, so let's be realistic about, what the Ravens have there.
I think he throws for 3,200. That's roughly what I'm thinking.
Yeah, that's reasonable. That's not crazy. I don't think he throws for 4,000 or anything. No. That's just not going to be silly.
And I haven't been claiming that at all.
No, I'm not saying you have been claiming that. I'm saying, even... what we have to say is we're having a hypothetical argument about the offense that the Ravens run. Even if that offense works, what makes them better than the Browns? What makes them better than the Steelers? I still don't see that clear pathway for the Ravens to be better than either team
between the
right
Steelers
now.
And the Ravens, between the Steelers and the Ravens, and then I'll take the Browns. Would you agree that the Steelers are a little bit worse than last year? Do you think they're a little bit worse than last year?
I don't know. They got rid of Antonio Brown, so they might be more contenders.
Do you think the Ravens
are on the same page
a bit better?
It took us an hour, but we got there.
Do you think the Ravens are a bit better than last year?
Yeah, I don't know if they're better defensively. They might be the same defensively, but losing C.J. Mosley, losing the leadership from having Terrell Suggs on that defense, that is going to be a factor. There is nobody in that linebacking core from a pass rushing standpoint, from a middle linebacker standpoint, that strikes any fear in any offensive coordinator's game plan, and that is going to be something they have to account for, at least with Terrell Suggs. Terrell Suggs would get you 6 or 7 sacks. Who are you depending on? Matthew Judon? That's not even somebody that people have wanted to depend on in the past.
They got Shane Ray and Tim Williams, too.
Yeah, the Denver Broncos depended on Shane Ray so much to let him go, and we didn't even know about it. All right? Okay. So there's a lot of question marks with the Ravens, and you're depending a lot on that secondary, which is really good. I think that Eric Thomas is going to, well, I just butchered his name, but you know what I'm talking about. ET is going to change a lot of things on that secondary. But if this team is not going to be able to keep points off the board, and also with that offense that you're running, you're talking about a 50-50 split there. When it comes to red zone scoring, there's a reason why teams that have guys like Big Ben are really good at red zone scoring, and teams, no offense, dude, but teams that have guys like Andy Dalton, when they don't have A.J. Green, can't score in the red zone, because that is all about how good your quarterback is at passing and how good your wide receivers are, and that is still an issue that is still alive for the Ravens. Sure, they might be able to score in a big play from the middle of the field, but when that ball is within the 40-yard line and the 10-yard line on the field, which is going to be most of the time, how are you guys going to put points up? Are you guys going to kick a lot of field goals? Because if that defense is not up to par of what it was last year, there are not going to be a lot of wins there for you that were available last year, because the entire division has gotten better.
Yeah, and I also think, we live in a league where defense doesn't matter anymore, right? If you look at the defensive, like the best defenses in the NFL last year, none of them were at top of the league as far as the best teams in the NFL. In fact, if you look at the four teams that played in the championship games last year, none of those teams had top 10 in DVOA on defense. Kansas City was one of the worst defenses in the league. So were the Rams. Defense, having a great defense, now, even if Baltimore's defense is good and it is shutting people down, it's still not going to matter because, like Quincy said, the Ravens aren't putting points on the board. But this is a league where everybody's putting up points regardless of the defense they're going up against. And so Baltimore has to be a team that is capable of scoring in the 30s and 40s when it faces teams that are high-powered offenses. And I just don't think that Lamar Jackson is that guy.
And one last thing to add on is you're a Lamar Jackson hit. You're one hit away from 6-10. Because if Lamar Jackson, the way that he runs, he could easily get injured, especially in this division.
That's
and
fair.
if that happens, who's there? There's no Joe Flacco coming out anymore to back him up. I don't even know who you guys is backup quarterback.
RG knee.
They got RG3's knee braces.
RG3.
Can I address something from the chat? Because Willie in the chat said, Steelers boy is tweaking. The Super Bowl was strictly a defensive game. That's an outlier. The Super Bowl was an outlier. The year as a whole was the best offensive year ever in history. There was one game that was played that was a defensive struggle. That was the Super Bowl. Do not act like the Super Bowl told the story of the year itself. This is an offensive
I will say, though,
to
his defense, though, when we see these things come up, when we see this high, it's always with the high-powered offenses in the biggest game. Generally, that's where the team that has, a top 15 to 10, a decent to good defense is always going to come out on top. Because we just see that high-powered offenses have a hard time winning when they can't play defense. That's what got the Kansas City. But that's exactly what killed the Kansas City Chiefs. It's almost what killed the Los Angeles Rams if there wasn't that crap pass interference call. So yeah, sure. The defenses may not seem like they matter if you look at it from the four teams that were contending to be in the Super Bowl. But I still think that if you're going to be a Super Bowl winning caliber team, you do need to have
defense,
probably
close to a top 10 defense.
Well, you have to. I think you have to have a defense that is capable of turning the ball over. All of the teams that were all the defenses that were in that top four that I talked about, all of those were top 10 in getting turnovers throughout the year. So I do think that matters as far as defense goes. The ability to create turnover.
Okay, so we have been here an hour, and I know you guys are busy, and it's been fun. And I think it's good that we all agree that the Ravens are going to win the division, and it's all good. It's all loving here.
I think the consensus, two out of four, were the Browns.
Well, I think the consensus was that the Steelers are better off without Antonio Brown, and the Ravens are going to win the division. I think we can all agree on.
Okay, so but
wait, did you just say the Ravens are going to win the division?
I think the consensus
you heard for the Steelers.
The Bengals are going to shock everybody and win the AFC North. I think that's what the consensus
The Bengals are going to win the Super Bowl this year, man. Andy Dalton's really going to put it together. This is going to finally be the year that Andy Dalton gets over the hump. I can see it, man. I have a Bengals fan who I'm friends with from college. We met up like the first few weeks of the season. He was all hype about the Bengals. You know, they were on top. They were like 4-2 at the time. They were on that win streak, and he was telling me about how Andy Dalton's one of the top 10 quarterbacks in the league. How everybody's sleeping. He could finally see the connection between the team, and then right after that's when Tyler Eifert got hurt and the wheels fell off that season. I have not heard from that dude since that day.
Understandable.
Okay, before I go with the next question, guys, for everybody that's in the chat, please hit the like on this video. Also, the information from all the tubers and podcasters is down in the description. So if you want to follow the Locked On Steelers podcast, that goes to iTunes as the link that I put. But for Ace and Quincy, their YouTube channels is down below. So go ahead and give it a follow, like I said in here, like, and if you're not a subscriber, please subscribe. Okay, so division. I think this is going to be one of the best divisions in the AFC. If we think about it, the East is weak, in my opinion. I mean, the Patriots are the Patriots, but after that, ugh. And then you have I forgot where the Colts are. That division, the South.
South. Yep.
The South is gonna be. I mean, Texans have offensive line issues. They're gonna get that guy Watson killed, which I love him, but they need to fix that offensive line. The Jaguars might come back and win that division this year if Foles can be halfway decent. And then the Colts, the Colts are gonna be bad, and the Titans, I think they're just a 6-10 team. And the other good division is the West, right? You had the Broncos are gonna be decent. Kansas City's gonna, in my opinion, take a little step back, but they're still gonna be good. And the Chargers, for me, are the best team in that division. And I'm forgetting the one team the Raiders. I think the Raiders are gonna be better than last year. They're gonna be decent. Okay, so us are
they got problems. They got problems.
They got problems with 84. Okay.
Yes, indeed.
But I wanna know, Ace. I'm going to start with you. What is the record that you see the Bengals having in this division? Just internal in the division.
I think before the Jonah Williams injury, I was pretty optimistic. Now that the Jonah Williams injury has happened, the AJ Green injury has happened, right now I'm still looking at everything because there's been some things that have happened with some of the teams that were playing Seattle and the 49ers. And right now I'm feeling like 8-8 sticks out to me. I know that's probably going to sound crazy to other people, but I think 8-8 right now is actually doable for us this year.
Okay, so 8-8. What I want also is the AFC North record, the record between us.
The AFC North also for everyone else. I think the Browns.
No. Meaning like
their division record, right?
Oh, division record.
Yeah. What is the Bengals division record against all three of them?
I think we split with the Ravens and the Steelers, and I think the Browns beat us twice.
Okay, so you're looking at 2-4, right? Yeah, 2-4. Okay. Go ahead, Quincy.
All right, so with my prediction for the Browns season.
Yep.
All right, so I think the Browns, realistically, I'm going to be modest here. I think they're going to be 11-5 this year. I think they're going to start off a little bit slow at the beginning of the season. People are going to panic. All the narratives are going to be crazy. First take, Colin Cowherd, he's going to have a field day. And then after that game with the Patriots, if you look at their schedule, they have all but one of their division games after that week, after week 9 or 10 or whatever it is. And that's when they're going to make a run. They have a huge game and a huge opportunity because they play the Steelers on a Thursday night at home, which we know statistically it favors the home team, which is big. And then they get to circle back around and play the Steelers again late in the season, which is also going to be a huge game in Heinz Field because the Browns have not won there since 2002. So there's going to be a mental hurdle there for that team. But I think that they're going to be able to put things together late in the season. They're going to put their team chemistry together later in the season, and that's when Odell's going to start to shine. That's when guys like David Njoku and Baker are going to be at their best in the second half of the season, and the schedule lines up perfectly for that. So I think they're going to finish 11-5. And then as far as the division goes, I do agree with Ace. I think they're going to sweep the Bengals. I think Baker Mayfield has a personal vendetta against that entire franchise. Sorry about that, man, but Ben's had it on us for a while. So we've dealt with it. With the Ravens, I'm torn because we play you guys early, and I think you guys might be able to get us early because it's week 4. We play you guys in Baltimore, so I think we might split with the Ravens, and I think this is the year. Finally, the Browns. Oh, this gonna upset somebody. Sweep the Steelers, win in Heinz Field, win that Thursday nighter, and beat the Steelers to clinch their spot as a home playoff game in the AFC for the first time since they have come back to Cleveland in 1999.
And the Browns fans are about to lose their shit.
Oh yeah, well, I'll be shirtless, drunk in the street, probably getting arrested.
Okay, get us, Tony. What is your
I
prediction?
actually don't disagree that the Browns have a real chance of sweeping the Steelers this year. I really did not like the Steelers schedule when it came out. I hate playing a team. I hate anytime the NFL schedules 2 games in 3 weeks. That they kind of the division games twice in 3 weeks. I hate that schedule. I think injuries play such a factor in that. Imagine if Baker Mayfield goes down in week 10 and he's going to miss a couple games. Now all of a sudden he's missing both matchups against the Steelers, or vice versa, right? If Ben Roethlisberger were to go down and he's going to miss a couple games, he's missing the entire series against the Browns. Browns Steelers, when I grew up, it was the rivalry, right? I mean, that was it, and I loved it. And it's been gone. It's been missing for a while, right? 20 years of watching the Browns constantly trying to rebuild. I am excited. I am genuinely excited that the Browns seem like they're back. Now, I have a lot of questions about whether or not they're actually back, but I think it's going to be a fun series. I hate that it's twice in 3 weeks, though. Injuries could absolutely play a part of that. I think the Steelers will lose a Thursday night game. You look at their schedule; they have the Colts, then Rams, then they're at Cleveland on Thursday night. That game in Cleveland on Thursday night is going to be the Cleveland Browns Super Bowl. I mean, that is it, right? That is the game. They have a chance to beat the Steelers, to prove that they belong and all of that. The Steelers are going to be coming off of back-to-back tough games. I hate the schedule. So I do think this. I think the Steelers at least lose one of the 2. Now, I do think they come back in a couple weeks later and beat the Browns. I think they split that series.
Plant that flag, baby.
The Bengals, look, I think the Steelers do sweep the Bengals. The Steelers have had the Bengals number for a while now. And then as far as the Ravens go, the other thing I don't like is when they put these division games as the last week of the year. Sometimes these games just don't matter, right? I mean, the Steelers played the Browns with Landry Jones twice because that game just did not matter. So, I think the Steelers could lose that game, absolutely, especially if it didn't matter for them. I'll predict them to go 5-1 in the division, but I think 4-2 is absolutely possible. I have the Steelers going 11-5 this year. I know I'm confident about Antonio Brown, but it's because I know everything that happened in that locker room last year outside of his production on the field. And I think that this team, when you look at, I'll go back to like Rex Ryan, right? When Rex Ryan took over the Jets, what was the big roster turnover that they have? There really wasn't any. It was a culture change that Rex Ryan brought to that team. It's the same thing that happened last year with Baker Mayfield, right? When I actually really liked the Baker Mayfield pick on the Browns because I don't think he was the best quarterback coming out. I thought Josh Rosen was the best quarterback, although that hasn't worked out. But I think Baker Mayfield had the right attitude going in. The Browns were a culture of losing. And they needed someone to come in and to say, screw that. We are not a culture of losing anymore. I'm a winner, and I'm going to show all of you how to win. And it took firing Hugh Jackson before that actually happened, right? But, it did. And I think the Browns are they have a legitimate roster. Whether or not that comes together. Quincy, you talked about the Browns, playing poorly at the start or maybe dropping some easy games at the beginning. Don't you think that's worst case scenario for Cleveland? Because it won't just be the national media talking about what's happening with the Browns. You'll have the Cleveland media, the fans talking about it. Oh no, here we go again. Same old Browns. We were supposed to be this great team. I mean, that kind of inner turmoil is the kind of thing that rips these teams apart.
Yeah, I just have a lot of trust because, Freddie Kitchens is a new guy to a lot of people there, but people in Cleveland, we're pretty familiar with Freddie Kitchens. And, watching how he's handled things in camp, watching how things have come in through the media, and knowing the personalities that Baker Mayfield has, knowing the real personality that OBJ has, despite what's like kind of perceived of him nationally. I think that this is a team that can withstand having a few bumps in the road early and know that they have the talent to make it right, especially since they're looking at a schedule that has all but one division game at the second half. I think that's a team that's going to be able to hold it together and understand that this is bigger than just a few games early and some national narratives. I mean, Baker Mayfield, OBJ, they're magnets for negative attention from national media pundits. They're used to that. So eventually, when they have some stumbles, they're going to be used to Colin Cowherd Colin Cowherd's going to have a hot take regardless. So I don't think that kind of pressure is going to be what is going to concern or break this team down. I think that they're going to be able to hold things together. I understand why people will be skeptical of that, but I do trust what they have in that locker room and the people that they have in the locker room, that they will be able to withstand that and have a strong second half of the season, because they know that's really where the season starts for them.
Yeah, I think the expectation for this team is what kind of works against them, though, right? In some ways, right? That kind of having, this team has never done this before. They've never been, last year they kind of came out, they were an 0-16 team that could shock a bunch of teams at the end of the year. This year, there's no more 0-16, right? I mean, people are talking about this Browns team as being a legitimate Super Bowl contender because the roster is pretty good from top to bottom.
Yeah.
So if they do face some adversity, I know you believe in Baker Mayfield and all these guys, and to a certain extent, I believe in Baker. But I do, look, as someone who's been a Steeler fan for the past couple of years, who's watched this team implode from within, it does worry me when I look at the Browns and I see that very similar things happening, where you have all this expectation, but you haven't actually done anything yet.
Yeah, but with that whole conversation about expectations and how this team hasn't had expectations before, I think the one thing that does get lost is that people go, oh, this team went 0-16 2 years ago. There are like 3 guys on the roster from that 0-16 team. Most of the guys on this roster are from last year's team, and a lot of those guys were left behind and put on this team. And, when you talk about expectations, we have to talk about the individual players on the team. We talk like Baker Mayfield in college did not raise expectations to an incredible amount for an entire program at Oklahoma. He started as a walk-on that took over for a guy who beat Alabama and then raised expectations every year until he was a Heisman Trophy candidate. With OBJ, he has had incredible expectations his entire career since the catch. When he made that catch, people started comparing him to the greatest receivers of all time. Those are high expectations for himself personally that he's dealt with for years. This team, you're right, as a unit, this team has not dealt with these expectations. But really, what team other than the Patriots and other than what's left of, not even the Steelers anymore because they don't have their major pieces anymore, but what team is really experienced with dealing with expectations year after year? Were the Rams? Are the Rams this year going to be used to those expectations? Are they going to be on a slump?
Well, no, I think the Rams. The Rams went through it the right way, right? I mean, they were what? McVay got there and they were 10-6 and they were okay, and then they turned into the Super Bowl team, right? When we talk about the Browns this year, 11-5 to me feels a little too high, right? I mean, I think 9-7 is well within range. I think 10-6 if they beat some of the teams that are the tougher parts of their schedule. I mean, I think those things are within range, but I just feel like, especially if they lose some of these games early, I am also not going to rule out a very Browns 6-10 or a very Browns 5-11 if this thing just completely implodes from within. And by the way, the other thing I'll say about Baker Mayfield, I like Baker Mayfield a lot, but the guy does throw too many interceptions, and that can be a problem for that team.
So
I mean, he threw some interceptions last year in his rookie year, but historically, he is not an interception machine at all. He is one of the most accurate, and if you're talking about his college numbers, he is one of the most accurate passers who has thrown as many balls as accurate as he has without throwing as many interceptions as he has. But if he
started 16 games last year, he would have led the NFL in interceptions.
Sure. But you also have to account the offense that he was in for 8 weeks of the season. The Hugh Jackson offense was a terrible fit for Baker Mayfield. And then on top of that, he was dealing with, and you know how Todd Haley is when there's strong management, okay? He had to deal with Todd Haley and Hugh Jackson having an ego measuring contest the entire season until both of them got fired, dealt with incredible dysfunction during his rookie year. And then after that, Well, not during his rookie, but during the first 8 games of his career. And then after that, once that dysfunction got out of the building and somebody got a hold of him that knew what they were doing, he was 5-3, one of the most accurate quarterbacks in the NFL, one of the deadliest red zone threats in the NFL as a passer. And if you're looking at this team jumping, like, yeah, sure, their record last year was not great, but they had the worst head coach. Statistically, literally, the worst NFL head coach of all time. If you look at their overall record for 8 of those games, when they didn't have that burden of a head coach on them, they were 5-3. If you multiply that by 2, that's 10-6. 11-5 is really not that big of a jump when you've added one of the best wide receivers.
Right,
in the
but
NFL.
who did they beat? Okay, well, we talk about 5-3, but who did they actually beat at 5-3?
But Tony, also let's be honest. The Browns also will play the third string schedule versus the Steelers will play the second, and the Ravens will play number 1. And what I see from let me do my division. I see the Steelers going 9-7, so basically the same record as last year. I see the Browns going up and going all the way to 10 wins, and I see the Ravens going 11. I think this division will have 3 really good competitive teams. I have the Ravens splitting with the Browns. I have the Ravens sweeping the Bengals.
Oh my God, that
You
is
know
you
it.
guys-
You know it.
So
You
for the
know
past,
it.
like the equivalent of the Steelers and Bengals is the equivalent of what we are to you guys in terms of how far we've dominated you these past how many seasons? Like since AJ Green and Andy Dalton have been there, we've pretty much dominated you guys head up. And now you're telling me you're gonna sweep us?
I think this is the lowest point that the Bengals have been in the past at least 4 years.
Not without Marvin Lewis. That is impossible.
Well, unless LaFleur is the next coming of Jesus for you guys, I think we could sweep you guys. That's my
Zach
take.
Taylor.
Oh yeah, Zach Taylor. Yeah, LaFleur is the Green Bay. Yeah. Whoever
Be careful,
makes it,
Sonny.
Yeah, I know.
Jeff Driscoll might drop some dimes.
So
Jeff Driscoll could probably throw a better ball than Lamar Jackson. That's
Ooh,
all.
that's nice.
I don't actually. No, I like that take. No, that's a good take.
You watch it. You guys watch and see. I'll be tweeting to you guys. When we play, who we play first? It's the Browns. I think it's the Clowns, right? Yeah, we
The
play.
division.
We play you guys early on in the season too. I think.
It's week 6. You guys, it's week 6. Let
Yeah.
me see.
Oh, hey, don't worry. I'll tag you in my video of me laughing hysterically when you guys
Okay.
lose to the Bengals.
Go ahead. I think.
Oh, yeah.
I think.
Wait, can we agree? Like I know we all picked the Bengals to be the 4th team in the division, but there is a chance that if the Lamar Jackson thing doesn't work, they are the worst team in the division,
You're
right?
crazy.
Yes.
You're
Yes.
crazy. No.
Yes.
Quincy, you know you're thinking it.
No.
Ah,
I think if Lamar implodes, I think this.
I'll
team-
take that as a yes. We're
I can
right.
see it happening.
I'm writing it down, yes.
If Lamar implodes, I think we are like a 6-10 team, essentially the same as the Bengals. I think that's where we are. Now
Okay.
again, so I think we sweep the Bengals. I think we split with the Clowns, and I actually think we sweep the Squealers this year. I think this team is better than the Steelers. I think we are. I think we are. You guys keep laughing. So my
Wait.
So my record is 11-5 for the Ravens. So last year we won 10. I'm just giving us one more victory than last year. The Browns, I forgot the record for you guys, Quincy, but I'm giving you 10 wins. I think that's where you guys are. And the Steelers, like I said, in my opinion, they're gonna have essentially the same record. I'm not saying the Steelers are gonna be trash. At any point, they're gonna be good. In my opinion, they're a 9-7 team.
Right, but you understand, there's a year's worth of tape on Lamar Jackson now. So what happened? Like the Ravens have to deal with how are they now going to when other teams go out and do the same thing the Chargers do?
Mm-hmm.
How are they going to respond to that? What is their rebuttal?
Let
because
me
in that game
let me ask you,
there
Tony.
was no
Let me ask
rebuttal.
you.
Zero.
Do you have 6 decent corners to put in the field like the Chargers did?
Just put what the Chargers did. They said, look, we're going to take our fastest guys and put them out there because you're not beating us sideline to sideline.
But
and
you know
I
what?
know Lamar Jackson ain't throwing it past the line of
Gotcha.
scrimmage, so done
two
deal.
things,
I mean, they
two
basically
things.
ran a goal line defense all
Two
game,
things, two
and
things.
Lamar Jackson sat back there and turned the ball over 4
But
times.
two things. One, that team have one of the best secondaries near with the Ravens. I feel like the Chargers have between corners and safeties, guys that know how to play football. When you're gonna put all these guys out of position, the dudes that they have there, they were smart guys and they know how to play their positions. You're gonna tell me the Steelers that don't have, let's say Hayden is their best corner, but they're
Wait,
gonna
hold on.
have.
The Steelers have all this speed on defense now. They are built to beat Lamar Jackson. Devin
So-
Bush runs a 4.340.
Okay, so
Mark
you're
Barron's
saying
one of the best linebackers in the league. Terrell Edmonds, Sean Davis. I mean, yes, the Steelers. If there's a defense in the NFL right now that can
Edmonds.
handle Lamar Jackson, it is the Pittsburgh Steelers defense as it is
The
constructed right now.
only defense,
Chase
the only,
Edmonds,
the
yeah.
only change on defense that you quote there from last year was Devin, and I love Devin Bush.
They got Ola coming back from injury.
He's injured again.
He got injured again.
He did.
My point is, it's not
That was my
only
point.
Lamar. It's not only Lamar in this team that is fast. You guys keep going on Lamar. I'm just saying this team has levels of fast from the running backs and receivers and tight ends. I'm just gonna, you know what, you guys, you guys pick us last. You guys pick us last. It is fine. We're gonna.
You're
see when
talking
the
to a
season
guy
starts.
that has John Ross on his team. Speed does not equate to wins.
I
If
agree.
Lamar Jackson cannot get it to that guy,
I agree.
it doesn't matter if he can run past someone.
My
if
point
the ball
to
isn't
you-
going to
You guys remember Dree Archer?
I agree with you.
Kent
Ace.
State represent.
But Lamar
Fastest 40 ever.
Jackson has looked better in the passing game. My point to you guys, the progression that you're gonna see from Lamar Jackson, and I'm not saying that Lamar Jackson is gonna be Pat Mahomes or oh man, Tom Brady or none of these like top-notch quarterbacks. He's gonna be on his passing side. He's gonna be a good quarterback on the passing side. But having a good quarterback and then bringing the dynamics of the running factor that he has is what's gonna separate him. Again, not saying that he's gonna be torching it up on the passing game. I'm saying being a good quarterback, essentially being a guy, not they're not equivalent, but decent like Flacco was as a QB, but with the element of, on the running side, it's gonna take Lamar to the next step. And this team, again, then now you factor the receivers that we got, that we hadn't had in Baltimore for a while. I
still
think this
don't
team
have
is gonna be special. You'll see. You'll see.
All right, Ernie, let me give you a realistic way that the Ravens could win the division. Right? Here's how it is. It all comes down to John
I can
Harbaugh.
give you one. Check last year because we won the division last year.
Okay, technicality. But
Not technicality.
if
No,
you,
I can,
let me give you. Let me hold on. Let me
tweet you
tell
the
you how the
records.
Ravens
Let me
could
tweet
do it
you the
again
records.
in 2019. It all comes down to John Harbaugh. Can he invent time travel and get this team back to 1975 when 3 yards in a cloud of dust?
Wow.
Football? Because I don't know what we're talking about. Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady, Drew Brees, Aaron Rodgers. I mean, the Baltimore Ravens are going to compete with those guys?
Yes.
With Lamar Jackson?
Yes, I'm not saying Lamar is any of those dudes. I'm saying the team is gonna compete. It's a whole team sport. Between our defense, between our running game, and between our receivers, we are gonna compete. And I go back to you, Tony, and say like, you are dissing Lamar with all this stats that you want to throw me. The only stat that matters, go check who won the division last year and who was the quarterback. When Lamar started, this awful quarterback that you're saying, we weren't a playoff team. We were 4-5. Lamar started. What happened?
Right.
We won the division.
You guys have the
Can I
worst
say-
wide receivers in the division.
Yes, and we
Don't have
upgraded.
anybody.
We upgraded on receiver. That
Upgrade.
was the
Michael
whole.
They got Andy's cousin.
and Don
All right.
Brown walked
Hold
away.
on. So my big issue of you saying that the Ravens are going to sweep the Steelers, if the Ravens are a really good matchup for what the Browns could do offensively, and that's why I think they could give them the most problems despite it not being clear who's the best team. I think that the Ravens really don't match up well with the Steelers enough to sweep them. The Steelers are a team who, regardless, they're going to be able to put points on the field, and
Yeah.
since the Ravens don't have a pass rush that we can see that's going to, if it does, it's going to be a major surprise. They don't have any linebackers that are going to be able to stop tight ends. The Steelers are going to go up and down. A guy like Big Ben is going to go up and down the field on the Ravens because he doesn't have to rely on Juju in those games. He's
Okay.
Big Ben. He can make things work. Hold on. And he can make things work like that. And then when it comes to the other side of the ball, what the Steelers do well defensively, if the Steelers could do one thing, they could probably stop the run. They could probably do
Sixth best run
something
defense in
with
the
that.
NFL last year.
Yeah. They like I think one of the more underrated things that they did this season was add a guy like Mark Barron. It's a hybrid guy. It's a guy who's going to be really big in leagues where in divisions where you're going to have more mobile quarterbacks. I think Devin Bush was a big acquisition for them. They've always had a very strong interior defensive line to that 3-4. I don't know. I'm not as sold on their pass rushing, but you know,
TJ Watt, we got a Watt brother.
and they got TJ Watt. That blanked my mind. So yeah, they got TJ Watt. They're gonna be able to stop what the Ravens can do and make it difficult for the Ravens to score. And if the Steelers are able to get down the field, like I think they could be able to get down the field because of the weaknesses in the middle of that defense that the Steelers are going to be able to exploit, then that is where you run into an issue where I just don't think it's reasonable to say that the Ravens are going to sweep the Steelers because the Steelers are going to win a game because of matchup alone against the Ravens. Because I just don't think that matchup is favorable for them.
Okay.
That's why a team like the Bengals has been able to have your number consistently throughout the years because they were just a very good matchup for what the Joe Flacco, John Harbaugh system did. And offensively, you had no answer for what they could do with AJ Green and Andy Dalton. That's
I think Joe Flacco was a better matchup against the Steelers. He let the Steelers up, many times.
So
I mean, the Ravens won a game last year
in
Pittsburgh with Joe Flacco.
I can't wait for the Ravens and Steelers because you guys haven't watched Lamar in action first game.
Hey, Sonny, I got a real life question for you, man.
Go ahead.
What are you gonna do if the Denver Broncos make the playoffs and win their division, and Joe Flacco makes a Pro Bowl and
He ain't.
Lamar
I'll be
Jackson
happy for him.
Look,
if the Broncos make the playoffs, win the division, Flacco makes a Pro Bowl, I'll be happy for him. I like the guy. There's no hate on Flacco. I just don't think that. Look, the Denver Broncos have a problem on the offensive line again, and it's a problem that has haunted them for a while. And that left tackle has looked atrocious over there in the Broncos. So Flacco will.
But the one thing we know about Joe Flacco, though, is he don't take no sacks. He get rid of that ball. He will intentional ground before he gets hit.
True, but the problem is they're not gonna move the ball. That's what I think. But anyway,
Joe Flacco actually had the best offense for today's NFL because of the new. Look, Joe Flacco's best play was what? Heave it up and hope for pass interference. Now you can, if they don't call it on the field, you can review it.
Yeah,
you can review it. Listen, the Joe Flacco offense.
Have you been seeing the reviews? They're not calling. Like you challenge, they has to be egregious. Is what they're pushing, which is what I want.
Yeah,
is what I want. Anyway, because I'm losing my voice here. Damn, what I was gonna say? Oh, the Steelers and the Ravens. Look, our two linebackers that we have, Peanut, Bohr, and Kenny Young. All three of them are better covered linebackers than C.J. Mosley. C.J. Mosley.
You're gonna slander C.J. Mosley? I mean, the guy was just on the team last year.
No.
Disrespectful.
My guys, you guys should stand up so you can listen. Listen.
My goodness.
Listen.
Oh my
I'm
God.
saying they are better covers, like in space. So C.J. Mosley, once Wink enter as a DC, Wink likes to play more as man defense, right? CJ thrives in a zone scheme because he's super smart, has good vision and good hands. Okay, he's not as quick as the other guys. Now he's a bigger dude.
We didn't give Tony flack for saying that the Steelers are going to be better without Antonio Brown. We cannot give you flack for saying that this defense is going to be better at pass coverage because they don't have C.J. Mosley.
Quincy, yo, Q. But listen, I'm not even saying that my guys are better than CJ. I'm saying on coverage alone, I think CJ is better than all three. I'm not saying you guys reacted very quickly. I'm saying the three guys that we have, they're faster. They're quicker and they're more tailored to coverage as when they have to man up to a running back coming. Like CJ used to get torched from a running back coming out of the backfield, right? My point is,
I think people slept on C.J. Mosley if I remember right, and I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I remember because the Steelers were thinking about getting C.J. Mosley, And I remember his stats against the pass aren't great, but they're not as bad as people made out like last year. Like he was one of the worst coverage linebackers in the NFL. Listen, John Bostic was a Pittsburgh Steeler last year. He was the worst coverage linebacker in the NFL. And I can say that with certainty. CJ Mosley was average.
The point that I'm trying to make is this matchup problem that we have with the Steelers. I don't see it because our linebackers are still good cover linebackers. The leadership void, that's what everybody calls from Suggs. We have plenty of leaders that have been in the team for a while. Are they as big of a like a cornerstone like Suggs? No. It's like when we lost Ray Lewis, right? That was a cornerstone in the leadership side.
Oh, okay.
All right, man. This is coming from a Bengals fan. Vance McDonald is gonna have a field day on your linebacker.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
No.
So tell Vance McDonald when he tried to run over Tony Jefferson, since he was blah blah blah, I'm the Avenger, blah blah blah. He tried to run over Tony Jefferson. Tony Jefferson, give me that damn ball, and ran to the other side.
Even if I concede your point that they have better pass coverage linebackers, in that even though CJ Mosley is a better all-around player, that you got better in pass defense, because even if I buy that, then you're telling me you have a bigger hole that James Conner can take advantage of, and that Steeler offensive line can take advantage of, that it's going to be easier to get to the second level? What I'm saying is, with CJ Mosley, you had less vulnerabilities in that second level of that defense.
That I
Without
agree.
him, even though you have players who might be better at one specific skills, you are way more vulnerable. So yeah, sure, if you stop Vance McDonald, that might be a thing. I think you don't stop him, because I don't think these guys are elite pass coverage linebackers, but you might contain him a little bit more. But then that just means that James Conner is going to be able to go off more. I don't think you match up well with that team.
One of the
they also lost so many. They lost so many pass rushers this year too. The Ravens defense has problems,
guys.
One
of the reasons that our linebackers usually are very big in the tackles is because our front defensive line, Brandon Williams, Pierce, they allowed that linemen not to get to the second level. That's how the sorry.
But look at how little help they have now. They don't have help on the edges. They don't have help behind them. So now you're asking a lot more out of them that they're not going to be. They're not Superman.
I disagree.
They're not all three Aaron Donald. They can't handle that burden.
You know what I mean? Dude, but the thing is, I'm saying to you, they're good because they can hold linemen to not get to the second level, and then you're saying that I'm calling them Aaron Donald, but Aaron Donald can rush the passer. At any point, I call my defensive lineman able to rush the passer. All I'm saying is they prevent those linemen to get to the second level, and that allows the linebackers to play more freely and come down. A guy like Tony Jefferson as a safety, or Peanut, or Young, or Boyd. My point to you is this defensive nightmare matchup that you're saying that the Steelers present, I don't see it. All I see is the Ravens can play against the Steelers a little bit more freely now, because they don't have the two guys on one receiver that we used to have.
I thought you told me. Oh wait, hold on. You guys spent the whole podcast telling me that Juju's getting double teamed, and that's going to be the problem with this offense. And now you're telling me that you're not double teaming Juju?
I'm just saying, if Juju was not we couldn't double team Juju at any point. Most teams, because they were afraid of AB. And if Juju starts having a good game, now you have the ability. But you don't go to a game and say, like, oh, that dude, we're going to double team him. You don't.
Nobody is double teaming anyone on the Ravens.
Well, no,
no, because all 11 guys are playing the run.
And I didn't say again that nobody.
Oh no, come on.
At any point, I said that anybody was double teaming the Ravens. Negative. With the Ravens, all I said to you guys was, they're gonna try to do what the Chargers did, right? They're gonna bring a bunch of guys to the box, and what that's gonna allow is easy completions to Lamar Jackson. That is all it's gonna allow, and we're gonna be moving the chains. We're gonna be moving the chains.
Okay.
And here's also another thing I think we need to factor in, man. What the Ravens did last year, I don't think, like, the ideal that, they're just going to do the same thing and that they got tape on them. Like, I agree with you that that's not completely going to be the case. But you have to remember, man, in the NFL, we play you twice a year. So you might catch us off guard for like a quarter or a half, but this is the NFL. They're gonna catch up. They're gonna figure something out. They're gonna move personnel around. The entire league is adjusting to kind of defending those air raids. So now we have more athletic linebackers. We have more versatile defensive backs. We are more teams are more equipped to be able to game plan something in the middle of a game that can stop what the Ravens can do, which is something you definitely have to factor in if you're a Ravens fan. I'm not saying it's going to tank the season. I'm not saying they're going to stink because of it, but I am saying that, hey, you got real question marks on that defense. You have no real answers at pass rusher. You have no real answers in the inside of that defense. And there are teams in this division that can take advantage of that. I don't think the Browns are one of those teams that are going to be able to, because I don't think we're as strong on the offensive line as Pittsburgh is. But a team with a strong offensive line like Pittsburgh is going to be able to negate what you have on that front seven with those three interior linemen on your 3-4 and be able to take advantage of the holes that you have with your linebackers. Yeah. And that is where the mismatch is. And that's where I would really, really be concerned if I'm a Ravens fan. Because if the Steelers are able to move the ball and score like the Steelers have been able to do this entire decade, do you have the offense that can keep up with that? Is what Lamar Jackson is going to be able to do? A quarterback whose ceiling, we all agree, is about 3,200 yards this year in the air, might not be able to put up the fast points, the amount of points that you need to compete with the team that's going to be able to score on you with that defense like the Steelers. Sure, with the team like the Browns, you may be able to defend them better because our strengths are with our receivers, not with our interior line. But with the Steelers, they're all about the interior line. They're all about the ground and pound. They're all about Big Ben, the bootleg play action, the short slants 5 yards up the field. That's what they're built off of. They've been built off of that for 10 years. My point
to you, Quincy, is we can cover the receiver side. And then what happened? Look.
What happens if you don't get a pass rush?
What happens when Big Ben cannot find his first read? What does Big Ben do? Because he's
okay, but I'm saying this though: if you give Big Ben, who is a borderline Hall of Famer, more than 3 seconds to pass the ball, I don't care who you have on that secondary. He's going to pick them apart. I have seen Big Ben pick apart good second, and I don't like Big Ben at all, like on the record. I'm not a Big Ben fan at all. I hate Big Ben because every time you see a fat guy chase
quarterback in Cleveland Browns Stadium history.
Yeah, okay. Every time we see a fat guy from the Browns chase Big Ben, he throws a touchdown to Antonio Brown, but we don't got to worry about that anymore because
it's Juju now.
Okay. So my point to you, I think Quincy froze here. But my point to you guys is the Ravens have the layers to defend the Steelers. In my opinion, oh, you're back. Hey, you froze there for a moment. But I was saying the Ravens have the ability to make Big Ben hold the ball, and Big Ben loves to hold the ball. That's when the sack. Look, the Ravens haven't had
you're in trouble.
I was just gonna say that's when you're in trouble. Look, you can't cover all the receivers for that long.
Dude,
there's no pass rush coming from Baltimore this year.
The Ravens haven't had a dynamic pass rusher in the last 2 or 3 years. Suck has been putting 6 to 7 sacks, 5 to 7 sacks the past couple of years. Judon the same, and Z last year put 7, and before that 3, 5. It's been a combination of guys, and we always been able to hit with pressure. We always been able to get there with the pressure. Yes, we don't have a TJ Watt. I got you. I agree. We don't have a I'm blanking of your dude on the Browns.
Myles Garrett.
Yeah,
Olivier Vernon.
Yeah, we don't have that dude.
Let's calm down, Vernon.
My point is we have a group of guys that they will give you. This guy will give you 3 sacks. That guy will give you 4. That other guy will give you 6, and the other guy might give you 7. And as a team, we're able to rush the passer every year. That was last year. That was the year before. I think the last real pass, like a one pass rusher that was killing it was Doomerville. That was the last time that I can remember a legitimate pass rusher was having a hell of a season just by itself. After that, it's been a combination of guys that are able to pressure the quarterback. And the reason is because it's the secondary makes the quarterbacks hold it for that 1 extra second, and that allows a above average outside rusher to get to the quarterback. Yes, TJ Watt doesn't need that extra second.
All right, Sonny, though, let me ask you a fair question.
Go ahead.
In the last 5 years, the last few years, is this not the worst array of pass rushers you guys have had?
No, I think the big thing
I,
is
I
people look. The
Isn't this
thing
the least amount of talent the Baltimore Ravens defense has had? I mean, in that same
no,
period.
I think people are just questioning because you don't see Suggs. I think if we would have Suggs this year, meaning
or
if Suggs
Mosley?
or fair or
DJ.
mostly, if we would have one of those
Darius
two,
Smith.
you would have been asking this. No, I think
Yeah,
Sedarius,
because
a guy like
they're good players.
a guy like Sedarius Smith, we lose every year.
Vital.
That was Pearl McPhee a couple years ago.
Sonny, I can't remember the last time I could never recall like a Ravens linebacker. Like this is the first year that I've ever been able
We
to
are a
be like,
young team on the
"Ooh."
linebacker side. We are
Well, how
Yeah.
many years has Matt Judon been in the league
3.
though? That's time to know that he's not a star as a pass rusher.
Wait. It goes back. When did I say he was? All I told you was in the past couple of years we have a group of guys. We don't since Doomer, we don't have that prolific guy that puts 10, 12 sacks. I think Doomer had 15. After
I
that,
don't think you have a guy who can consistently give you 7.
Right. Who's
Judon-
gonna be the guy when it's 3rd and 8 and
Judon
you
has
need a guy
put
to deliver?
7
I
sacks.
need you to get pressure on this play. Who is that guy?
Well, that's what I was saying. Judah has put 7 sacks in the past. We brought Pearl McPhee back. Pearl McPhee can put sacks.
No.
And
Yeah, but if those guys are your guy, you don't have a good pass rush.
And in my opinion, Tim Williams is a good pass rusher. He's not a complete outside linebacker, but in a passing down, a passing situation,
Tim
the
Williams
group
is your best
can
shot. Tim Williams
create
is your best.
pass rush.
Tim Williams had 2 sacks last year.
Yeah, he was injured and then he was inactive for a couple games. My point to you is, I'm not even saying Tim Williams is a good outside linebacker. He's a good pass rush specialist. And then a 3rd and 7, that's the guy you break. Point is, I don't see the mismatch.
Do you think
Go ahead.
that your outside linebackers would start on a majority of NFL teams?
I think Judon can be a starter in the majority of teams.
On a playoff team.
Could they start on
Yeah.
any team in this division? Any other team in this division could they
They
start?
could probably start on the Bengals.
I was gonna
Well,
say the
guys,
Bengals. I was gonna say the Bengals because the reality is that
But-
the
But
Clowns
Preston
have.
Brown is better than any guy that you guys have over there because he actually led the league in tackles one year. So
My point is the Browns have 2 studs on the outside. The Steelers had T.J. Watt. And you
Who's
watch.
Bud this year? He's in a contract year.
Yeah. of
I don't
course.
like Bud Dupree, but he's in a contract year.
Look, you
Weird things
might kill Judon. Judon next year will get the same contract as Darius got. Because Judon, since he's been in the league, has produced a little bit more than what Sedaria has produced for his first 3 years. And look, my point is, what you see from the Ravens is what you could argue to me last year and the year before on the pass rushing side. The only reason that you guys didn't put that argument is because you see that guy 55 there, Suggs. You're like, well, they still have Suggs. Yeah, Suggs put 7 sacks last year. The year before, I think he put 6. Point is, this team is on the outside backer is constructed of a bunch of guys that will give you 4, 5, 6, 7 sacks, and as a unit, they produce pass rushing. But yeah, the problem
I
is
don't see that kind of depth there
We'll
as a
see
unit.
it.
though.
Yeah.
We'll see it.
I don't think
that
if
guys
your
like-
leading
like-
sack guy is 6 sacks. I mean, you've got it. I mean, it's
Well,
But that
think
was
more-
last
I
year.
think what you're
My
because I
point
get
is
what
that
you're
was
trying to
last
say,
year.
Sonny.
That was last year. Our
Yeah.
sack leader was 7 sacks.
no, it's
That
8.5. Hold on, I'm looking at it right now. It's
Here's what
8.5.
I'm saying though. Here's what I'm saying though. You had more like you're saying last year it wasn't an issue because you had more solid guys you could rotate in there with depth. This year, the guys you were using as depth are it on your defensive line. Like I wouldn't expect any production really out of Shane Ray.
No, he's not making the team.
Yeah, it's like, so you got 2 guys who are at best maybe borderline starting level guys as pass rushers. Who else do you have? Because this is a defensive line position. They're going to rotate those guys in and out. And when they rotate those guys out, who are they putting in?
Again, my point is, my starters as it's constructed right now is Judon and McPhee. Behind them, you have Bowser and Tim Williams, right? Bowser for me is a complete linebacker, but not as good as a rusher than Tim Williams. And Tim Williams is not a complete backer. And then you have the rookie Ferguson behind them. My whole thing is between those guys, they can create pass rushing like we have in the past. This argument I heard it before. And second point is the secondary allows that extra second for those guys that yes, they're not T.J. Watt, Miles Garrett, or Olivia Werner, but that secondary will create that extra second that allows a guy that is above average to get there versus a T.J. Watt might not have that, right? That luxury,
man.
right?
Sonny, man, I understand that you're a Ravens fan, but you guys have the worst pass rush in the division. You don't have a Geno Atkins. You don't have a Carlos Dunlap. You don't even have a Carl Lawson. I don't even know if you even have a Sam Hubbard. You gotta be realistic, man. You guys have.
No, I like Sam Hubbard. That's not that hot.
You guys got some holes there, man.
No.
I still think you guys have probably the best secondary in the league. I think that's where your depth is. I think that's what you guys need to build on. I think, like you said, in the trenches, you guys do have some pretty good defensive tackles, but defensive end and rushing linebackers and inside linebackers are going to be a question mark. So people are going to call you guys out on those aspects.
So I have my boy Nubo here ask a question, and I think it's a fair question. So Darius Smith before last year, was he really a known guy? I mean, I knew him because I remember when the Steelers drafted Bud Dupree, and we were like, and I remember when we drafted Darius, like, wait, that's Bud Dupree's countermate, right?
Yeah, from the University of Kentucky. Yeah, I was aware of Zadarius last year
but
and the year before.
Last year, he had a fairly good year and got way overpaid, in my opinion, but good for him. My point is, what you saw from Zadarius, somebody will pick it up this year because that's what happens to the Ravens every single year.
So, because they the Ravens.
I'm just saying, every year we have a couple guys to pick up the slack.
That was my man Tony's exact reason for why we ain't worried about Antonio Brown at wide receiver because we the Steelers.
Well, I mean, listen, there's a long line. I mean, do you want me to go over the line? Do you want me to go over the list?
I'm fully aware.
And with this, I'll stop. But the difference is, at this point, I had never claimed that we we're gonna have one guy that is gonna be T.J. Watt or J.J. Watt or Miles Garrett. No.
Yeah,
I'm just saying a bunch of guys they're just producing as a unit. Yeah, my point is, as a unit they're gonna produce, not as a single guy. We don't have that single guy.
Yeah, I understand your argument there. You're saying it's going to be by committee. I just don't think that committee's as strong as it was last year to produce like it did last year.
Yeah.
I think you lost key players on that committee. I mean, C.J. Mosley and Terrell. I mean, Terrell Suggs make up for a lot of that. And then you have a situation where with the offense you're going to run, man, you better be able to produce in that front seven, if you want to win. And I think it's not so. I'm not saying Ravens going to have a trash front seven, period. But I say it's a huge question mark coming into the season. You have to at least acknowledge that.
You know what the offense allows? The offense allows that time of possession that the team, the defense can rest and they can come and ball out. That's one of my points from last year when Lamar came in. He allowed that team defense to be fresh and ball out. But anyway, we have to leave it here. We have been almost 2 hours, and I said to you guys there I was gonna try to keep it around an hour. So
11 o'clock.
Yeah, it's gonna be 11. So
Popeyes is closed.
I think this was awesome. This was fun.
Definitely.
So I'm gonna start with Ace. Tell them where they can find you and how they can follow you during the season.
Sure, man. Just first off, want to say thank you for having me on. Glad to be able to have some great conversation with several intelligent guys that are around the division. You can find me on YouTube at New Stripe City. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at New Stripe City. And thanks for having me.
All right, guys. So during the season, when the Browns are dropping them dubs all over your favorite teams and you're all mad about it and you want to drop some hate in somebody's comment section, try to put some soil in my tea, you can find me on YouTube at youtube.com/Quincy Carrier. You can find me on Instagram.com, at worst_take. And you can drop all of your saltiness and all of that hate. When Baker plants that flag in Pittsburgh, you're more than welcome, Tony, to join and jump into my comment section and talk about Baker Mayfield. Ravens fans, when the Browns win this division, take that crown from y'all and put that nice on that head on Lake Erie like it belongs to, like this division needs a team to, then, you can hit me up down there. I just did a collab with Engraven, so check it out down below.
And guys, where SCG Sports. If you are new to the channel, please subscribe, like, share the video. On my road to 500 subscribers, I try to do.
But
Straight
I
up.
Oh, we're only 20 away. Let's do it.
Yes, we're 20 away. So I try to do this every week, and I'm probably gonna try to call Ace, and I'm gonna try to call Quincy and Tony before when the season starts. I do a behind enemy lines the week of with the podcaster from the other team, and it's always fun. It's always good conversation. It's all fun. At the end, we all
Tony, you
gotta
muted me?
disagree. The what?
You muted me?
No.
The chat saying you muted me on my outro.
No. What?
I see what's happening.
It shouldn't be muted, but if not, we'll
Okay.
repeat this. Um, but guys, it was a lot of fun. Thank you guys. Like I said, down is the description links for all their channels. Follow them on Twitter. Go ahead and subscribe to their YouTubes or to the podcast. And again, guys, this was fun. Thank you guys for coming here. And it will be until next time, guys.
Can't wait.
All right. See ya.
Peace out, guys.
Yep.